So welcome to our daily video. We're very glad that you're here today. We begin with our customary two blessings. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, ho'oneh be'et tzara. Praise are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who answers us in our time of crisis. Hayom, arba ma'ot v'chamisha yomim lahaseger. This is the 405th day in our isolation. And Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Praise are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who makes us holy through the commandments and commands us to busy ourselves with the study of Torah. There are several Hebrew words that are used in the Bible, actually quite frequently, but we don't really have a very clear meaning of what the words mean. And they sort of try to gain an insight into what the word means by the context in which the word is used, but they're not used often enough to really get a full sense of the context. And one of these words is the word Atzeret. We use it often, most often, I guess, and we talk about Shemini Atzeret, the holiday that comes after Sukkot. But we really don't have a picture of what the word Atzeret means. We talk about Shemini Atzeret, we call it the 8th day of assembly or a special assembly or something like that. Because not really what Shemini is 8, but we're not really sure what Atzeret means. After Sukkot, we call that holiday the Shemini Atzeret, and it indicates that perhaps it's a festival, it's a Yom Tov, but it's not. But we're not sure why it's a Yom Tov. Right? We're not sure what makes this day a special holiday, what makes it a holy day. What is the specialness about the 8th day? The word seems to indicate some kind of a concluding festival, that the conclusion itself makes it a day worth celebrating, a day of making it a Yom Tov. After a week of Sukkot, we have this one extra day festival, and the diaspora it's 2 days, but this one extra day festival that's different from Sukkot, but seems to yet be attached to the end of Sukkot. Sukkot is 7 days, and then this 8th day is kind of attached on to the end. In the Talmud, Shemini Atzeret is not called Shemini Atzeret at all. It's simply called Shemini, the 8th day. And the rabbis assume that when you see Shemini, you're going to know that what they're talking about is the 8th day of Sukkot. What we don't see in Atzeret when it comes to a very similar festival of Pesach. Pesach is also a 7-day festival, and the last day of Pesach is called a Yom Tov, but it is not labeled an Atzeret. It's just called a Yom Tov that they celebrate the first day and the last day, or in the diaspora the first 2 days and the last 2 days. That's a whole different story altogether. But the beginning and the end of Sukkot, of Pesach, are considered to be holidays, but the last day is not considered to be an Atzeret. It's just considered to be the last day of the festival. What is interesting is that the Talmud does use the term Atzeret, but when it uses the term Atzeret, it's using that term to describe the festival of Shavuot. It calls Shavuot an Atzeret. It comes the day after we finish counting the days from the end of the Omer. We count 7 weeks from the start of Pesach, and the Bible calls Shavuot after Pesach. Now, the Bible doesn't know Shavuot as an Atzeret. The Bible doesn't call it that at all. The Bible calls Shavuot a first harvest festival, a Yom Katsir. The start of the wheat harvest begins around the time of Shavuot. That's why we read the story of the book of Ruth, which also takes place during the wheat harvest. Later, rabbis would connect Shavuot to the giving of the Torah, given a historical context that the Bible doesn't seem to know about, the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. But coming 7 weeks after Pesach, the rabbis saw Shavuot as the Atzeret festival, that additional festival that would come at the end of Pesach. And just as Shemini Atzeret is after the 7th day of Sukkot, Shavuot comes the day after the 7 weeks of counting since Pesach. Thus, Shavuot is connected to the cycle of 7 days. That's that cycle that we see in so many different places on the Hebrew calendar. We have every 7th day is Shabbat. We count 7 weeks, and then we have this Atzeret, this Shavuot festival. We count 7 months, and we get the high holidays and Sukkot in the 7th month, a very busy month for us. We have the 7-year sabbatical cycle, and we have the 7 times 7 year Yovel, Jubilee cycle. That every 50th year we have this again. We have 7 weeks of years, 7 years, a festival. And so at the end of that, the next day is a Yovel, is a Jubilee festival that could be kind of an Atzeret in its own right, except for it's not a day, it's an entire year. As we count now these days of the Omer, as we count these days between Pesach and Shavuot, and we're counting these 7 weeks, we use this as a chance to remember the symmetry of time in God's creation, that everything is built into a calendar of 7.